The night rested quietly over the city of York, where a grand estate stood tall against the misty horizon. Rain brushed softly against its wide windows, and the earthy scent of wet stone and grass filled the air. Inside this luxurious home lived Edward Langston, a man admired for his fortune, his influence, and above all, his gentle nature. Edward, now in the prime of his life, had almost everything others could only dream of: luxury cars, a reputation that opened doors in every circle, and a devoted wife. Yet despite his wealth and respect, there was one void in his life that refused to be filled. For over a decade, he and his wife, Clara, longed for a child. Each year without one felt heavier than the last, like an unseen weight pressing on their hearts. Their mansion was dazzling, filled with fine art, rich furniture, and glittering chandeliers. But it lacked the most precious sound of all: the laughter of children. Christmas mornings felt hollow, and birthdays of friends' little ones served only as a painful reminder of what they were missing. Clara often wept in silence, hiding her tears in her pillow at night. Edward, though outwardly strong, carried his heartbreak in silence too, his soul slowly wearing down with every prayer unanswered and every treatment that failed. Clara had tried every possible path: medical treatments across Europe, traditional healing in faraway places, endless prayers whispered in sacred halls. Nothing brought the miracle they desired. Their love for each other remained, but sorrow became their constant companion, testing their bond day after day. And it was in this silent emptiness that temptation found its way into Edward's heart. The Langstons had employed a housemaid, Selina Carter, a woman from the American South who had come to England chasing dreams of a better life. Tall and graceful, with sharp brown eyes and quiet dignity, Selina carried an aura that turned heads wherever she went. She had been working in the Langston household for several years, tending to the daily chores with professionalism and care. Selina had noticed what others could not. She saw the streaks of tears on Clara's face when she believed no one was watching. She saw Edward pacing the corridors at night, restless and weighed down by sorrow. Slowly, she became witness to the cracks forming in a marriage that once looked unshakable. One stormy evening, Clara left for London to visit her sister. The rain outside pounded against the house, thunder rumbling across the skies. Edward sat alone before the fireplace, staring into the flames, a glass of whiskey by his side. His mind replayed the years of loss, the loneliness, and the fear that his marriage was slipping through his hands. Selina entered quietly to clear the table, but when she caught sight of Edward's downcast face, she asked softly, "Are you all right, sir?" The simple kindness in her voice broke something within him. For the first time, Edward allowed his pain to surface. He admitted his despair, the feeling of failure, the helplessness of watching Clara as sorrow with no way to fix it. Selina listened silently, her gaze warm and compassionate. When she gently touched his hand, it felt like the first light after years of darkness. That night, in his weakness, Edward made a decision that would forever change his life. Weeks slipped by after that stormy night, and soon Selina approached Edward with trembling hands and anxious eyes. Her voice was barely a whisper as she said, I'm expecting a child." The words hit Edward like thunder. For the first time in more than a decade, he felt alive with hope. His heart raced, his eyes welled up, and he clung to her words as though they were the answer to all his prayers. He imagined tiny footsteps echoing across the marble floors, the mansion filled with laughter, and Clara's face glowing with joy. Tears streamed down his face as he repeated, "Are you certain?" Selina nodded solemnly, and Edward's joy overflowed. He embraced her, whispering gratitude through his sobs. That night, he could not keep the news to himself. Through heavy rain, Edward drove to the countryside where his mother, Margaret Langston, lived in a modest stone cottage surrounded by fields. Margaret, though aging, was strong in spirit and known for her wisdom. When Edward rushed inside, drenched yet smiling wider than he had in years, she noticed the glow in his eyes instantly. "Mother," he said, gripping her hands tightly, "I am going to be a father. Selina is carrying my child." Margaret's expression changed in an instant. Her face turned pale. Her lips quivered, and she looked at her son as though she had seen a ghost. Pulling her hands away, she whispered with trembling voice, "No, Edward, that cannot be." Confused, Edward insisted, "But this is the miracle we prayed for. This is what Clara and I have been waiting for." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. She reminded him of the accident he had suffered as a young man, a terrible fall that had nearly claimed his life. Doctors had told her then that the injury had left him incapable of fathering children. She had hidden this truth for years, hoping to protect him from despair, praying that somehow life would still offer him happiness. Her words struck Edward harder than any fall. The ground beneath him seemed to vanish. He stumbled back, clutching a chair for support, his heart racing with disbelief. The child he thought was his miracle could not possibly be his. Shattered, Edward returned home with his mind in chaos. He confronted Selina the very next morning. His voice was heavy with sorrow as he demanded, "Tell me the truth. Whose child are you carrying?" Selina froze, her hands shaking as she set down the dishes she was holding. For a long moment, silence filled the room until finally, with her eyes lowered, she admitted, "It isn't yours. It belongs to my partner. We thought if you believed it was your child, you would support us, give us money, and help us escape poverty." Her words sliced through Edward like a blade. Rage boiled within him, but beneath the anger was humiliation, sorrow, and shame. He had betrayed his wife, and in return, he himself had been deceived. That evening, Clara returned home from her trip. She immediately sensed something was terribly wrong. Edward sat silently, his face pale, his eyes red from tears. She sat beside him and whispered, "Edward, what is it? What has happened?" Unable to contain the weight of his guilt, Edward broke down, falling to his knees before Clara. He confessed everything: his weakness, the betrayal, and the cruel truth revealed by his mother. He admitted that Selina had lied, and that the child she carried was not his. Clara's face went white. Her hands trembled, her lips parted, but no words came at first. Finally, with tears filling her eyes, she whispered, "You have broken my heart, Edward. But listen to me, our love was never built solely on having children. I did not marry you for that. I married you because I loved you. Family is not only blood, it can be built in many ways." Her words were like sunlight piercing through the darkest storm. Edward wept in her arms, overwhelmed by both her pain and her forgiveness. That same night, Selina was dismissed from the estate. She packed her few belongings and left in shame. Her plan exposed and her future uncertain, Selina's departure left the Langston household in uneasy silence. For weeks, Edward and Clara spoke little, each nursing their wounds in private. Yet despite the pain, Clara's words of forgiveness lingered in Edward's heart, urging him to rebuild rather than surrender. Slowly, they began piecing their marriage back together. They sought counseling, prayed side by side, and promised to face every challenge as partners, no longer hiding their fears from one another. The road was not easy. Trust had been broken, and wounds cut deep, but their love proved resilient. Clara, with her unwavering strength, suggested something Edward had never dared consider: adoption. At first, Edward hesitated, weighed down by shame and self-doubt. But Clara's gentle conviction reminded him that family was never limited to bloodlines. It was built by love, commitment, and sacrifice. Months passed as they navigated the exhausting process: interviews, paperwork, endless waiting. But finally, their perseverance was rewarded. One morning, they received a call that would change their lives forever. A pair of siblings, a boy and a girl, had been placed for adoption in Liverpool. When Edward and Clara held the twins in their arms for the first time, their world transformed. The mansion that once echoed with emptiness now rang with laughter and tiny footsteps. Toys scattered across polished floors, walls resonated with joy, and the silence that had haunted them for years was finally broken as Edward cradled the twins. Tears streamed down his face. His mind drifted back to the stormy night of his weakness, to Selina's betrayal, and to his mother's heartbreaking revelation. But above all, he thought of Clara, her forgiveness, her strength, and her unshakable love. In that moment, Edward realized the true meaning of family. It was not defined by blood alone, but by devotion, compassion, and resilience. Life had broken him, yes, but it had also rebuilt him stronger. The lesson etched deeply into his heart was clear: truth, no matter how painful, is always better than lies. And children, whether born to us or brought into our lives through adoption, are not possessions, they are gifts to be cherished. From then on, the Langston estate no longer stood as a hollow monument to wealth and sorrow. It became a home filled with love, laughter, and the promise of new beginnings.